You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're now being joined from Arise Abuja studio by Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu, a security and defense consultant, for the conversation around Nigerian Army's admission that the Tudumbiri bombing of December last year was due to human error and that it has initiated a court-martial against two of its men. Group Captain Shehu is an adjunct professor at Jose Marshall European Center for Security Studies in Germany. Good morning and welcome to the program, Group Captain. Good to have you on the show today.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure being with you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's start with the admission of the Nigerian Army that human error was responsible for what happened last December in Kaduna State in Tudumbiri local government, where, as you're aware, about 100 people were killed. Army says it's human error and that two of its officers have been court-martialed. What are your thoughts, and do you think that this admission is adequate given the number of people that died and given the loss that Kaduna State and that community in particular, suffered and is still suffering? What are your general thoughts regarding what the Army is saying?
Thank you very much. First, my understanding of the statement released by the defense spokesman, General Buba, was that those found culpable will be court-martialed. Now, having said that straight, I would like to say first, my reaction to this, announcement by the Nigerian military, first is my sympathy for those people that will be found wanting and will be tried by a court-martial. My sympathy arises from my being a professional colleague who knows, the intricacies, the dangers, the uncertainties that surround the military profession, especially when there is an operation going on. So I can understand, but at the same time, again, I must commend the Nigerian military for the moral courage to come out and admit that this was a mistake, and also the moral courage to want to, apply some kind of sanction. We don't know what kind of sanction of those people that we have found wanting. This is in line with global best practices, and I also commend them because, with due respect, in the past, we have not been having this kind of, upfront admission. We've had times where there was collateral damage, and there was no admission. We even had a collateral damage in Nasarawa, for example, where the governor came out to say it was an unknown drone. As somebody who is conversant with this kind of investigations and how these things are handled, acknowledgement is very important, especially where the security forces of a country, whether it is military, whether it is police, whether it is DSS, accidentally, unintentionally, or through negligence, killed a Nigerian citizen who is the taxpayer that pays for these services. Acknowledgement is also a human thing to do, acknowledging that Mr. X was a particular Nigerian, living, he is not a criminal, he is not a bandit, but unfortunately, in our search for bandit, which government told us to do, he was accidentally killed. We acknowledge that Mr. X or Malam X or Chief X existed, and he's no longer existing as a result of our action. I think it's a human thing, it is a professional thing, and I must commend the military leadership, because like I said, in the past, we've had denials, even in the face of very, very valid evidence. Acknowledgement is a good thing, so I commiserate with those that will be first. Is like I said, every job, like they said, had its own hazards. There are professional hazards. If a driver driving a public bus drinks or he doesn't have a license and he carries passengers and has an accident, there is tendency he will be charged for manslaughter. Unfortunately, it is the same with a security personnel, whether police, whether military, whether civil defense, whether whatever, you are given arms to protect the civilians. Sometimes you do that even at the risk of your own life. But unfortunately, training is given to you. Guidelines are given to you to ensure that in discharging that your duty, you do it according to laid down procedure. Where it is found that you didn't do that, unfortunately, despite the patriotic work you are doing, again you have to pay, because the system is like that.
Okay, so let's talk about this debate around whether the laws of armed conflict or human rights should be relaxed in the interest of national security when fighting unconventional warfare. What are your thoughts on this, and how can a balance be struck between security imperatives and the protection of civilians? Are there specific circumstances where collateral damage is considered lawful and permissible under the laws of armed conflict? And what criteria should determine the legality of such actions, Captain?
Well, first, yes, this is a debate that you hear, not only among the general public. For example, I've heard governors saying that if in an area X, they're suspected to be bandits, why don't you just kill everybody and everything? Or if bandits take hostages and go into the bush, if you know where they are, everybody should sacrifice, just clear the place. With due respect, these are the opinions of people who are not professional military people. The professional military man or security man knows that there are laws that are guiding his conduct. And unfortunately, the difficulty of a conflict, whether unconventional or irregular, which definitely is more difficult to operate than one-on-one conflict between one armed forces and another. Despite these difficulties, there is no, the military man or the security man does not have the luxury of saying, I have suspended international humanitarian law, I have suspended human rights because the fight is irregular or the fight is unconventional. So what I am saying, in military or security operations, there is no law-free zone. No matter the dastardly act of the opposing side, no matter the difficulty, the security man or the military man is ingrained in him, is trained on him that he must apply certain minima that respect international humanitarian law, that respect human rights. Having said that, let's even understand what do we say when we say collateral damage. Collateral damage, by definition, is any damage, injury, or death to an object, to a target that is not a military objective. It is also any damage that you cause unintentionally and incidental to the fact that you are after a legitimate target. So these two adjectives are very necessary to understand what collateral damage. First, it is unintentional, and it is incidental. Incidental, that means I am after 10 people. And then I kill those 10 people, and then unfortunately there's one farmer or there's one child there. International humanitarian law understands that, and it accepts that. In all teachings on international humanitarian law, there is nowhere where it says collateral damage is not accepted at all, or that a commander can only perform when he is sure that there is no collateral damage. He is 100% sure, because such a time can never come. However, international humanitarian law, all of armed conflict also, requires the attacker, from planning to conduct to post-attack procedure, to ensure all necessary precautions, all feasible necessary precautions to ensure that collateral damage is either prevented or minimized in proportion to the military advantage you are going to gain in a particular attack. So unfortunately, I must say that, yes, collateral damage is accepted, but certain conditions. What are those conditions? The condition is that you took all feasible precautions. To carry all these feasible precautions, international humanitarian law gives you like 4 or 5 principles. There's the principle of distinction. That is, you must distinguish between a civilian and a fighter or a non-civilian, between a civilian object and not a non-civilian object. For example, between a hospital, between a school, and an armored dump of the enemy, between a security camp of the enemy and a primary school. You must do that distinction. Then the other issue is military necessity. You must even ask yourself, the destruction of this person, the destruction of this object, is it going to add, is it necessary for the operation that I am going? That's the second question. The third question is proportionality, which has to do literally with the collateral damage. I am going after 10 bandits, but these 10 bandits are inside a primary school where there are 50 children. You do the proportionality. Yes, the military advantage is that I will kill 10 bandits. But the danger, not even the actual, the possibility is that you will kill 50 primary school children while getting these 10 people. Definitely, the collateral damage in this instance, I'm just being dramatic, is too high. So these are the sort of things. And then, even again, very importantly, you must seek intelligence. Military people will understand, and intelligence people will understand when I say there's difference between intelligence and information. There's difference between intelligence and rumor. For example, anybody can come and tell you that there are bandits in Tudumbiri, for example. But to the military man, to the security man, that is just raw information. International humanitarian law, requires you to take the process of, even if it is the governor of Kaduna State that called you, like it happened in Nasarawa. Some people are saying it's government of Nasarawa that said there were bandits in that area. Still, the duty is on the military operator or the security operator to carry that as a raw intelligence. Yes, governor is probably somebody you could rely on, but still, the possibility of a mistake is there. So you have to analyze that information. If you have people on the ground, if you ask. If you have a DPO there, for example, you ask. If you have a DSS and National Orientation Agency, they always say, I don't know how true it is, that they have presence in every part of Nigeria. So sometimes, again, it's process of coordination. Yes, I have received that information. So your intelligence, as opposed to information or rumor, must be processed to ensure that this, and even while processed, today is Sunday, about 8 o'clock. If I receive information that there are bandits in Tudumbiri, and it takes me like Monday to prepare for my attack, it is possible by Monday 8 o'clock, the information I got by Sunday 8 o'clock in the morning is no longer the same. So you have to even update. Even after analyzing and turning it into, you have to update. Up to the last minute, you drop your bomb or you fire your gun, you are always updating the information because there may be need that things have changed and you no longer. So, in essence, collateral damage is accepted a rule, but with the proviso that you took all reasonable care to ensure that civilians, because the whole purpose of the military or security first is to defend the country, and in defending the country is to defend Nigerian citizens and their listen. It is a very professional, it is a very patriotic endeavor, but at the same time, care must be there. It is not, acceptable to say that you can sacrifice people's lives just because of national interest. It is not so.
Definitely, especially when it's, 120 people. However, I want you to maybe focus on that Tudumbiri is not an isolated incident. This is not the first instance of maybe a mistaken bombing or the Nigerian military coming out to say that there was a mistake, either it being a drone or a mistaken attack on Nigerian citizens. So I want you to shed light on how prominent you think this is, these type of mistakes, or you believe the military should be doing to prevent these mistakes, and if we should see investigation going into other incidents, for example, the incident in Nasarawa earlier on. So do you think that the Nigerian military should be investigating these events, and also what should we be doing to prevent such things from happening? 120 people dying in the name of collateral damage is way, way, way too much.
Thank you very much. Yes. Like I said, collateral damage is acceptable under the conditions I enumerated. It is not acceptable under where there was clear lack of looking for, for intelligence or using a wrong weapon or using a wrong tactics. Having said that, it is true, when the Tudumbiri occurred, many newspapers, I don't want to name them, they have carried a chronology of, collateral damage incidents. I can count back to me, as far back as 2013 or 2014, we've had collateral damages. Some do not appear, as prominent as we had Tudumbiri, probably because Tudumbiri is near, but there are others. Others, with due respect, they were even suppressed by state governments, who for their own thinking, that is the best service they can offer to their citizens. Having said that, collateral damage happens even to the best military in the world. We can almost say talk of the best military, we can easily cite the US military. They have collateral damage, but the frequency is what is at stake. How frequent is collateral damage? And what do they do after collateral damage? There are global best practices to do that. Just as I'm talking now, I think just yesterday, the United States released a collateral damage incident that happened in 2023, where only one person was killed in one of these foreign excursions. And they said what they are doing. So I think this is where I acknowledge what the current crop of military leaders have done. In the past, like I said, we don't acknowledge. So we must be concerned as military professionals, are people who treat the military with the frequency of our own collateral damage. And what will reduce that frequency? What will reduce that frequency is more and more training, more and more tactics, more and more guidance, more and more investigation. Now, when people say investigation, there is tendency to think that an investigation is only to embarrass the military, or to embarrass a particular service, or to punish a person. But no. The major importance of an investigation is to find out what were we doing wrong. Is it tactics? Is it training? Is it the kind of equipment? Is it the kind of ammunition that was used? All this with a view to preventing. Of course, along the line, there may be sanctions that some people may be relieved of their command, some people may punish, but that is not the idea. The idea is to ensure what other militaries do. Again, I said in the U.S. military, where you have like this, to be honest, and I'm calling on the military to do that, where you have this student bureau, after finishing your investigation, after honestly identifying what caused it, you go back and put remedial measures. It could be training. It could be that, look, for now we must know which target we use drone on, which one we use infantry to go on foot. It may be this. And what do? You go back to Jaji or Army School or Air Force School, and you turn this Tudunbiri into what we call a scenario in military. That is, you go and do an exercise on that Tudunbiri so that current and future officers and soldiers will be taught. This is what happened. This was the mistake the commander made, or this was the mistake that headquarters do. If you were in his shoes, what will you do? That is the best way to teach military. When the U.S. military bombed a hospital in Kunduz, I think it's 2017, the Minister of Defense, that is their Secretary of Defense, said that all U.S. forces that are being deployed, he tasked the military to go and form an exercise based on what happened in Kunduz, and that everybody must go through. This is what we should be doing. And you asked about what is the best way to stop this. In general, I am not being particular about the Tudunbiri. The things that cause collateral damage is faulty intelligence, unverified intelligence, no clear rules of engagement, wrong use of a particular platform. Sometimes a target, because of where it is located, is better not to go by air. It's better to use infantry on the ground. Sometimes it's better to use a fixed-wing aircraft. Sometimes it is better to use a helicopter. Sometimes it's use a drone. It's training that will teach which platform is appropriate for which target. Even when you come to the platform, like the drone can carry bomb. It can carry missiles. It can carry bombs. It can carry weapons. It can carry a machine gun. It can carry other types of different weapons. All these weapons, each one has its characteristics. There is the one that you need when you want to destroy the whole place. There is the one that, look, this is in a village. There's a particular house I want to get. There's a crime. So again, it is training. And of course, availability. So like you see, again, sometimes collateral damage could happen because for the commander, that is the only thing that he has. Now that is a political question. You must make sure that your military have an array of choice of weapons. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Captain, for unpacking the issues surrounding Tudunbiri. Now, if we were to switch gears here, I'd like your assessment on the reports making the rounds that the United States and the French governments are allegedly lobbying Nigeria and other regional countries to sign a new defense agreement, allowing them to redeploy expelled troops. As you and I know, military presence on the continent is fast disappearing, given the U.S. recent withdrawal of troops from Chad and Niger. Now, northern leaders have expressed concern. They are asking President Tinubu and the Senate not to succumb. They say the presence of these bases could potentially divert government funds and resources away from critical areas like, education, healthcare, and infrastructure development towards maintaining and securing our military installations, or the military installations. Do you agree? I can see you're taken aback.
Well, I allied in some of the aspects written by these respective senior citizens. I have seen the letter. However, in some areas, I may have a slightly different opinion. They are right to express concern. And in my own research, it is not based so far on any request that has been made by either the United States or France after they have been expelled from some of these Francophone countries. However, I think they are sounding a cautionary warning to the government to really think if such a request should come. Now, we must go back to say that the issue of foreign military bases is even a continental problem that has been addressed or has been tried to be addressed by the African Union as far back as 2016. The African Union Security Council passed a resolution where they expressed concern about the proliferation of foreign military bases in Africa. But unfortunately, the African Union cannot order countries not to accept or not to accept these bases. If you go back as far back as 2012, when the United States wanted to open what they call an Africa Command, from the name, you know they would likely like to have a base in Africa. But at that time, stronger African countries like Nigeria, South Africa, and others, they weighed in on some African countries that wanted to accept the hosting of Africa Command and told them, no, this is not good for Africa. And because of their stature in the African Union, those countries went back. Now, we must understand also that the Sahel and West African region is of strategic importance to the US and other Western African for several reasons, economic reasons. Of course, some of the reasons are beneficial even to us. There is counterterrorism. There is regional stability. They don't want spillover of people into their territories by migrants and the rest. There is also, the other issue is American or French or other Western countries' national interest. The region is rich in resources. They want to be there. That is a fact. They never had that if you research. The other issue also, they don't know what is really the place for China or Russia, who are competitors, to take over that place. So what I am saying, there are benefits of hosting, but then there are also side effects. Some of the benefits we share with those people who want to put the bases and our own. Some of the issues, they are for their own national interest. Now, having said that, when you put a base of a country like America, America considers itself, as an international policeman, for good or bad. America has friends, but it also has enemies. Now, when you accept an American base, definitely that means you may inherit both American friends and American enemies. These are the issue. Now, let's come to the fact. Now, after this expelling from France at this thing, the American policy makers, having recognized the Sahel and West African region, certainly would like to look for an alternative base after being expelled from these areas. Where are they likely to land? Again, American policymakers have indicated preference to a coastal West African country. Coastal West African country. In that case, you can name possible candidates: Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Togo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, all those countries that are lying along the coast. But we have to look at history. We have to look at, the internal politics of those countries. And I want to say, even the American, policymakers, they are not blind about the internal dynamics of these countries. At the continental level, a country like Nigeria or Ghana, who have aspirations to be either regional or continental leaders, I do not see them agreeing to host a foreign base, because that will make them lose face among African contemporary countries. So to me, I do not see this. Even if the request was made, I think it will. Secondly, that will make that request impossible. I think Nigerian leaders themselves, they know from our history, after independence, when we wanted to put a British base or enter into an agreement with them, that there was massive rejection of that idea. I do not think our leaders will be fully enough to think of giving these people a base. However, for the smaller countries, with due respect, I use smaller in quotation mark, every country is the same: Liberia, Sierra Leone, Togo, Benin, because of the financial benefits that come with a base, and because they are not aspiring for any continental or regional leadership, they may offer bases to America or France. This is my own estimation, and I count Ghana, because Ghana, again, when you look at history, with the history of Nkrumahism, let me call it that, that was talking for African High Command, African emancipation. Even now, yes, there are bases, there is a small base, a temporary base in Ghana right now. But the Americans had wanted to enlarge it into a permanent base. The public outcry that greeted that suggestion, made the government to walk back. So I do not see Ghana even accepting that. Overall, right now, even as we are talking, Americans have 29 military presence across Africa. But they do this thing in a kind of way that you will not understand until you read the papers. They call some of these bases enduring presence. They call some non-enduring presence. They call some lily pads. They call some so many different items. To them, not all these 30 distinct are military bases. So again, it's a matter of technology. I mean, a matter of terminology. So I would like to say in end, I do not see history, internal politics, regional aspirations of Nigeria. I do not see Nigerian leaders agreeing. Of course, I have pointed out that when you do that, it means you are putting China at arm's length. You are putting Russia at arm's length when you accept it. I don't think Nigeria has been known to be non-aligned, whether on paper or in reality. So I think, but again, I must point out maybe what is pushing this debate in Nigeria. In 2016, if I'm not mistaken, the present Secretary of State for America, that is Blinken, he arrived in Nigeria. And surprisingly, you know, opposite to what was known of Nigerian stand on military bases, President Buhari then asked the visiting Secretary of State whether they should consider transferring AFRICOM, which is now based in Germany, to African continent. However, President Buhari did not say transfer it to Africa. That statement actually, you know, sent some mixed signals to people who have been watching, people like us that study this thing, because it is something that's out of the ordinary. But again, I emphasize, to the best of my knowledge, a request has not been made. And to the best of my knowledge, from the analysis I made, even if that request is made, I think historically, geographically, and other issues will not make Nigeria to accept that request. However, like I said, the smaller countries lying on the coast, in fact, some have even volunteered on their own long ago to host American presence.
All right, Group Captain, very quickly, just to stretch this debate further, do you think that the interest in this debate could have happened because of the body language of our president, who happens to be the chairman of the ECOWAS Commission, regarding having a strong ECOMOG or West African military force? Do you think that that could be linked in any way to the possibility of providing a base to either the American, you know, army or the French army? And even if Nigeria is not going to take that directly, do you think that Nigeria will have a say or an interest in which of the other countries in West Africa, on West African coast, this base eventually will go to?
Yes, every country that is in Africa or West Africa, if in the eventual situation that the base would accept, neighboring countries will have a concern because there's contiguity. You are near to the country that is hosting Americans. There are some spillover effects, either positive or negative, that will go there. And again, the letter written by this very venerable statesman that wrote an open letter to the government on this, again, you may be right. It may be as a result they see the body language of the current president, you know, towards these countries. However, like I said, any leader, and including, with due respect, including our president, will look at the domestic dynamics. He will look at the continental dynamics and do a pros and cons analysis. What will Nigeria benefit? What will Nigeria lose, including loss of face? How will Nigerian citizens, because again, diplomats will tell you that international relations should be informed by internal dynamics. I do not think, despite the friendly nature we see between our president and these countries, I do not think the government will eventually succumb. Because in my own analysis, this is my personal opinion, there is more to be lost than to be gained. Having said that, again, I have pointed the fact that sometimes the military presence might help. Because, for example, while they were even from Niger, there are records to show that they have been given us sometimes satellite imagery of the movement of Boko Haram when they want. When they want, it is not always. There are sometimes, because of American interest, they will even get the pictures or they will get the report, but they think it is not in U.S. interest to give out that information. There is that. So, but by and by, we still get some information because we do not have satellites that operate. So we need them. But then, at the same time, I do not think the benefits we are going to get will make our leaders to think of hosting the rights or even this. And again, you have to even look at this. If Niger have expelled France and Nigeria gives France sanctuary, if Chad, who are our neighboring countries, have expelled these people and we give them sanctuary, I mean, how does it look? The optics do not look good.
I'd like to come in here very quickly because, I mean, you have really broken this down, but there's still that concern that hosting foreign troops would compromise Nigeria's sovereignty and independence. There are doubts about the effectiveness of hosting these military bases in the Sahel region, and there's citing this recent expulsion of French and American troops from Niger, as well as the escalation of terrorism in the area. Now, how would you assess the efficacy of these foreign military interventions in combating terrorism, and what alternative strategies could be explored to address the security challenges in the Sahel? Beyond the immediate security implications, the presence of these foreign military bases, the impact it has on Nigeria's relationships with neighboring countries, as well as the entire regional stability in the Gulf of Guinea region, so to speak.
Thank you very much. In international relations, the presence of any foreigner, whether military or civilian, is a matter of sovereignty. And every country must have, permission or agreement must be sought before such presence is located. And again, I agree with you. So by allowing a foreign entity to employ, definitely you are giving a part of your sovereignty. In doing this, the Americans always sign what they call memorandum of understanding, or they have different names, they call these agreements. Now, for each one, it is different. I have had reason to read the agreement they had with Niger. I've read the agreement they had with Ghana. I had the agreement with other countries. When you see each one is specific, and the devil is in the details. It is the country that wants to host. It is their responsibility to really look at those, because definitely you are giving part of your sovereignty. For example, Americans will not put their troops anywhere unless the country, for example, agrees that for any offense committed by their soldiers, they will not be tried in that country. They have to go back to America to be tried. So you see, this is part of sovereignty, because under international law, any crime that is committed within your territory, that country has the right to try those offenses. Now, having said that, I think African countries, not only Nigeria, we have to look at a solution, a realistic solution. First, unfortunately, due to our own lackluster attitude, we do not have what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is looking for. That is a strong standby force, whether at the ECOWAS level or even at the African standby force. We do not have. It just exists on paper. So, and again, we are bedeviled by terrorism, insurgency, and other kinds of criminal, which sometimes we do not have the resources to really counter this thing, so we need international support. But we have to look at a balance where we have a shared interest with these countries to fight global terrorism. We have a on their side, they have interest that problem does not happen in African countries, so that they do not have refugees and people, flocking into their countries. So we have a common interest there. We have to look for a middle solution where they satisfy their own interest, and we also satisfy their own interest without giving too much of our sovereignty and rolling back African independence backwards. It is a very tough decision, but African countries have to come together. They also have to put their money where their mouth is. What do I mean? For how long since after ECOMOG have we been talking of ECOWAS standby force? For how long have we been talking African standby force? As somebody who has worked as the African Union, as deputy head of security at a time, and also participated in the African Union ECOWAS peacekeeping mission in Mali, I can tell you up to now the continent as a whole is not in a position to support any peacekeeping force or a standby force for it, which is a shame. So African leaders must put their money, they must put their money where their mouth is, by bringing a security architecture that can solve this thing. If not equal to what we have in NATO or EU, something similar to that. But then the countries are divided. We have local champions who want to cover their terrain. That is what is, hindering efforts.
All right. Thank you so very much, Group Captain Sadeeq Shehu. That's a good place to hang it there. And thank you for the brilliant insight, as always. We're grateful.